All right, it's uploaded. It's kind of cool. I actually did a video and uploaded it in real time. That never happens anymore. Okay, so this is chapter 17 of Calling on Dragons for Ryan, in which there is much excitement. What kind of excitement? It could be bad. Although they discussed the matter for the rest of the meal, Simrine's plan was the best idea they had. Since only Simrine could carry the sword, she had to be the person who sneaked in and took it. Morin had to go with her because the cats were going to act as lookouts, and no one else would understand them. Brandel was the logical person to distract Orona Vamist, and Talamain had to be with him in order to melt the wizards who might show up. What about me? Asked Killer. You'd just stand outside the back door and stay out of mischief, Morin told him. You'd be safer here, but we'll probably want to transport home right from Vamist's house. You're sure you can manage that part, Talamain? Simrine asked. Quite certain, Talamain said a little crossly. The last error was due to a cross-matrix interference that is not at all likely to be repeated. I might agree with you if we knew exactly what caused the interference in the first place, Morwen said. Since we don't, if it will make you feel better, I'll put a screening mechanism in the bypass module. This time, Talamain made no attempt whatsoever to hide his annoyance. Temperamental, isn't he? Said Scorn. Says the cat, who is constantly... Never mind. A screening mechanism sounds like a very good idea to me, Morwen told Talamain, and we aren't questioning your competence, so stop frowning. Getting the sword back to the enchanted forest is too important to take chances, even small ones. Then you better help me figure out what kind of adjustments to make to the spring-based loader so it won't ignore Brandel, Talamain said, since I assume you don't want to leave him behind for the wizards. Brandel looked at Talamain with alarm. Leave me behind? Why? The fire witches are immune to most spells, Morwen said, including ordinary transportation spells. Talamain is quite right. If we don't make a few changes, you'll undoubtedly find yourself standing alone in the middle of a Ronavamus yard when the spell goes off. We can't let that happen, Simrine said. If the Society of Wizards catches him, they'll do something awful. But you just said he's immune to spells, Killer said in a puzzled tone. So what can the wizards do to him? Break his legs. Tie him to a tree for the nightshades to eat. Stick him in a dungeon with no food, said Trouble. Wizards don't need magic to do nasty things. Horatio hissed. Killer's ears went stiff and the hair along his neck bristled. No food? They wouldn't. Not really. Yes, they would, said Morwen, if they caught him, which they won't because before we leave here, Talamain and I are going to make sure the transportation spell works on Brandel. Killer bobbed his head up and down in vigorous agreement. That's good. We don't want to leave anyone behind. No food? Those wizards really are horrible. I like that those are the terms that Killer can understand this. You two work on the spell, Simrine said. I'll get everything else ready to go. How far away did you say this place is, Brandel? 2 or 3 hours walk, Brandel said. It'll take us an hour to get out of the swamp, but after that it should be easy. Trouble lowered his head and lashed his tail in disgust. More mud. And no dragon to ride on this time either. Dibs on Morwen's shoulder, said Scorn. Wow, said Horatio in an emphatic tone. Will you need me for the changes you want to make in the transportation spell, Brandel asked Talamain. Because if you won't, I'd like to make a few calls. The rest of the family ought to know that the Society of Wizards is behind Vamist. Talamain removed a silver glove the size of a tennis ball from the pouch at his belt and studied it. What? Yes, of course. Go ahead. Morwen, I think we should start with the shift alignment linkages. We'll have to add 2 or 3 2 or 3 interrupt vectors, and we may have to modify the invisible channel connection as well. We'll need you when we test our work, Morwen said to Brandel, but that won't be until we're finished. You'll have plenty of time for your calls. This will take at least half an hour, possibly more. Brandel nodded and left. Morwen turned back to Talamain. I don't see the point of adding interrupt vectors. All we really need is a temporary change in the definition section so that it includes fire witches. Talamain's face went blank for a moment as he considered an idea. Then his nose wrinkled and his mouth twisted as if he'd bitten into something very sour. Temporary changes. How inelegant. As long as it's effective, who cares? Think of it as a trial run. You can study the ways all the various pieces interact and do a permanent redesign later. True. The magician began to look more cheerful. In that case, where do you suggest we start? Changing the transportation spell was simple, compared to keeping Talamain from putting in various extra things he wanted to test. Oh, God. Morwen insisted on doing the last few checks, since she was still a little worried about Talamain's condition. When they were sure everything worked properly, they called Simrine, who had vanished down the stairwell where they were working. Coming, a moment later, Simrine appeared at the head of the stairs, carrying her pack over her left shoulder and a long-handled straw broom in her right hand. Morwen, have you got any of that flying ointment left? Because if you do, I think you should use it on this. We'll get to Vamist's house a lot faster if we don't have to slog through all that mud. I am not riding on that thing. Telemain said. Mud or no mud. He wouldn't say that if he'd spent most of yesterday wading through this stuff, Scorn observed. You should talk, said Trouble. Between riding on Morwen's shoulder and riding on Kazul's back, you never even got your paws dirty. I was going to suggest that you and Brandel ride in the laundry basket anyway, Serene said to Telemain. There isn't room for all of us on the broomstick. There's a flying mortar and pestle in the basement, Brandel offered. It's too heavy to use for every day, and it's a little small, but if you'll help me haul it upstairs, you can use it. That seems really small to sit in. Anyway, it sounds nearly as uncomfortable as a broomstick, Telemain said. No, thank you. I'll take the laundry basket. What about us? Trouble demanded. You will come on the broomstick where I can keep an eye on you, Mormon told him as she fished in her sleeve for the jar of flying ointment. Scorn and Horatio should probably go in the laundry basket or possibly on Killer's back. We don't want to overload anything. I don't know, Killer said, ruffling his wings nervously. I still don't like cats, and they've got claws. You bet we do. Trouble held up a paw and flexed it, displaying 5 wickedly curved and sharply pointed claws. Killer shuddered. Couldn't I go by myself? No, Simran said firmly. We all have to do what we can, and what you can do is carry the cats. Well, I'm not doing any more flying, Killer said, planting his feet for emphasis. It's too hard and it scares me. I bet he gets airsick too, said Scorn. Rabbits. Yes, let's use this as a time to insult rabbits as a whole. While Mormon enchanted the broomstick, Brandon picked up the laundry basket and shoved it through the open window. Simrine set it hovering and helped steady it as the 2 men climbed in. Then she sent Killer and the 2 cats out after the basket and turned to Morwen and Trouble. All done, Morwen said. I hope the laundry basket holds together because that was the last of the flying ointment. Then let's go. We don't want Telemain and Brandel to get too far ahead of us. Not to mention that rabbit, Trouble said. They climbed onto the broomstick and took off. Simrine had to duck as they went through the window. Excuse me, Simrine, Morwen said as they swooped out and down. I forgot how tall you are. Better watch for low branches, Trouble said. Oh, boy. There aren't any low branches, Morwen told him, setting the broomstick to fly about 10 feet off the ground. A moment later, they caught up with Killer in the laundry basket, and the whole group continued on together. So strange. Their speed was limited to Killer's trotting pace, but with all the trees to dodge, they could not have traveled much faster even without him. Following Brandel's direction, they reached the edge of the swamp in 15 minutes. It's straightforward from here, Brandel said. Head west, toward those hills. At this rate, we should be there within half an hour. Half an hour? Killer shook his mane, drawing yowls of protest from Scorn and Horatio. You want me to keep running like this for another half an hour? I can't do it. And don't ask me to fly. That's even more work. Maybe if you didn't eat so much, you'd be in better shape, Scorn said. Agreed Horatio. I do not, said Killer. It's all very well for the rest of you. You all get to ride. I want a rest and a drink and a snack to keep my strength up. Morwen landed the broomstick. That sounds reasonable enough. If you don't take too long. 5 minutes and I will stop again halfway there. She looked at Simrine, who was frowning impatiently. I suppose we don't have much choice, Simrine said. And it really isn't fair to make Killer work so hard when it's so easy for the rest of us. But I do wish there was some way to speed things up. I'm worried about what those wizards might be doing at home. I'll think about it, Morwen said. Now, as long as we're stopping for a few minutes, Killer, are there any invisible dusk-blooming choke vines around? I can see 2 of them right over there. Killer pointed with his right ear. Are you going to let me eat one? No, I'm going to collect them from my garden, Morwen said. Goodness knows when I'll get another chance. She began rummaging in her sleeves for a trowel and some specimen bags. Is this an appropriate time to be gathering plants? Telemain said. We've promised Killer a 5-minute rest. I may as well use the time constructively. You're going to analyze Brandel's magic again, aren't you? Telemain glanced at Brandel and shifted uncomfortably. Given the necessity of a transportation spell and the possibility of unpredictable interactions between it and Fire Witch magic, it seems wise to repeat, then don't fuss about my plants. Morwen turned to Killer. Show me exactly where the vines are, and I'll give you the last bottle of cider. Don't get too close. They're dangerous, remember? How are you going to collect them, then? Killer asked. That is actually a good question. Watch. Puzzled but willing, Killer described the exact position of the 2 choke vines. Cautiously, Morwen edged closer until Killer said she was within 3 feet of the plant. Then she stopped and took a spray bottle and a paper packet of powdered slowstone from her right sleeve. What's that? Simrine said, interested in spite of herself. This bottle is plain water. Morwen pumped the top to get the spray working, then aimed it at the tree in front of her and covered as much as she could reach with a fine mist. Shining drops of water collected in mid-air, outlining invisible leaves and stems that shifted restlessly as if trying to reach Morwen and her friends. That's pretty, said Killer. That's wet, growled Trouble, shaking his fur as if he were the one who had been sprayed. Morwen slipped the spray bottle back into her sleeve, then carefully opened one corner of the packet. Checking the direction of the wind, she shifted position until the slight breeze came from behind her, blowing toward the invisible dusk-blooming choke vines. "Everyone else stay back," she said, and sprinkled the slow stone over the vines. The gray powder settled over the dampened leaves, outlining them even more clearly than before. Slowly, the restless movement of the plants died down until it was only a sluggish tremor. Mormon smiled in satisfaction. She hadn't been altogether certain that slowstone would work the same way on plants as it did on animals and people. "What was that?" Telemaine asked, breaking off his conversation with Brandel in mid-sentence. "Powdered slowstone," Morwen said. "It smells good," Killer said, "like fresh dandelion greens with cinnamon bark." "You wasted powdered slowstone on a couple of plants?" Telemaine sounded completely outraged. "I had to do something to calm them down," Morwen said. "This should keep them quiet for a day or two, long enough to transplant them, in my garden at any rate." "Does that mean they're safe now?" Killer asked. "Temporarily," Morwen replied, reaching for her trowel. "That is, they won't bother you if you get close, but I wouldn't eat them if I were you." "Oh." Killer's ears drooped. "Why not? They smell awfully good, especially with that powdered stuff all over them." "Weren't you listening at all?" Scorn said with a superior sniff. "That powdered stuff is slowstone. It's magical, and it does just what it sounds like it ought to do. We'd be lucky to get to Fama's house by tomorrow night if you ate any of it." Killer looked at Mormon. "You mean it would slow me down? I thought you said it made those plants safe. Safe to walk near, not safe to eat." Morwen knelt next to the choke vines and began to dig. "And I don't know whether you'd slow down or not. So far, you haven't reacted with any particular consistency to any of the things you've eaten." "It's possible that the slowstone would inhibit the onset of any alteration resulting from the consumption of invisible dusk-blooming choke vines," Telemaine said. "There is precedent for such an eventuality in Killer's response to the growth-enhancing qualities of McDonald's fertilizer, although the parallel is not perfect." "What did he say?" Killer asked anxiously. That that the slowstone might slow down your reaction to the invisible dusk-blooming choke vines instead of slowing you down. Having dug all the way around the root of both plants, Moen slid her trowel under the clump of dirt and carefully lifted the first paralyzed choke vine into a sample bag. Unfortunately, the only way to tell for certain would be to try it and see what happens. "You mean the vines might do something to me too if I ate them? Why didn't you warn me?" I did. You told me they were dangerous. You didn't say they were magical." Trouble gave Killer a deep look of disgust. "You think normal plants get named invisible, dusk-blooming choke vines?" "But they aren't invisible," Killer protested. "Not to me." "Then maybe nothing would happen to you if you ate one," Simran said. "You can experiment later." "Morwen, are you finished? We've been longer than 5 minutes, and I'd like to get going again." "I'm done." Climbing to her feet, Morwen tucked the sample bags and trowel into her sleeve and smiled. "And I believe I've thought of a way to speed up the rest of the trip. Have you got any rope in your pack?" "What? What? Okay, well, now I have to find out what the plan is. We're so close. Look, there's only this much of the book left. How? I don't understand. Something's gonna happen."